So my name is Ariel Figueroa from Albuquerque, New Mexico. Moved out here 6 years ago from New York City. I've been brewing now for about 3.5 to 4 years. When I moved out here, my niece's husband was brewing with a Mr. Beer kit. And he used to carbonate them in 1 liter soda bottles. So when I moved out here, he gave me a couple of 1 liter soda bottles of his beer. Tasted it, could not believe that it was made in his kitchen. At that point, I was fascinated with craft beer, and that's all I wanted to drink. So no more Budweiser, no more Coors Light. I don't know what I was missing, or I knew what I was missing at that point. So that's all I was drinking from then on. And maybe about a year after that, a buddy of mine that I worked with, he was a home brewer, and he was probably home brewing for about maybe 10 years. I expressed my interest in it, so he invited me over to his house one day to help him brew a beer that he was making. So went over to his house, we brewed that morning, helped him out, and that was it. I was hooked. I went home, got on the internet, and started looking for a starter kit. And that's where my love of home brewing started. So why do I home brew? There's something about you creating something and having a finished product. And like I said, rather you're a director and you're watching your movie, or rather you're a chef and you're tasting your meal or having other people taste your meal and loving it, there's something about making beer, making good beer, and then when I have other people taste it and they look at me and it's like, man, this is good beer. I feel very proud. It's very gratifying, and it's looking at that pint glass and being like, man, I created that. It's a really cool feeling. And on a more personal level, I've battled with anxiety and panic attacks all my life. And home brewing, when I'm brewing, during those 5 to 6 hours, I'm at peace. So about 2 years ago, I decided, I've always wanted to make a beer. I love pumpkin, and I've always wanted to make a beer with pumpkin in it. So I was on the AHA website, the American Homebrewers Association website, looking at different recipes, and I came across a pumpkin spiced saison. I love saisons, one of my favorite styles. So the recipe called for, during the mash, about 1 pound of pumpkin mix. So to add it in the mash. So I do my mash, hour passes by, doing the boil, hour passes by, or 90-minute passes by, and I'm at that point now chilling the wort. I thought about it and I forgot to add the damn pumpkin to the mash. So I added the nutmeg, I added the cinnamon and all the other spices, but I forgot the pumpkin. Obviously at that point it's too late. I didn't want to add it in the secondary. I've heard bad things about that. So I decided, you know what? The best beers sometimes come out of mistakes. So I just let it go, fermented it, cold crashed it, bottled it, and left it at that. To this day, it's the best beer I've ever made. What do I love about Spike equipment? So there's a couple different things. When I was looking for a new kettle, I wanted to get a 15-gallon one. So I did a lot of research. Did a lot of research online, seeing which one was a good quality kettle, but at a reasonable price. And yeah, there's certain equipments that you can go cheap on, or do it yourself. But in my opinion, the kettle and probably the burner are the two pieces of equipment that you don't want to go cheap on. So I had my mind set on spending a good amount of money on a good kettle. And then I was on homebrewtalk.com, the forum, and someone mentioned Spike. So I decided to check out the website. The first thing that caught me, which I loved, was that it's an American-made product. So I definitely like that. the fact that it was made in Milwaukee. So it was American-made product. Definitely respect that. But then also the other thing that caught me was just the quality of it, and at such an affordable price, which to me, I consider myself a home brewer on a budget. You know, I was ready to spend $400 on a kettle, and then when I looked up the reviews and read about Spike, it's like I can get just as good enough quality kettle for half the price of the other brand that I was thinking about getting. Just taking it out of the box, I was blown away. The tri-clad bottom, the fittings, the welding. I mean, it was a beautiful piece of equipment. And when I first used it, how fast it got up to boil because of the tri-clad bottom and how the heat spreads evenly. It got to boil so much, and this is there was about 11 gallons of wort in there, and it got to boil faster than when I was using a 10-gallon kettle boiling 5 gallons or 6 gallons of wort. I was amazed. And right there I knew that my money went to a great product, and supported a great company. So it's, out of everything that I own, all my equipment, my Spike kettle is without a doubt my favorite piece of equipment, and I would never use any other kettle again. Last year at the New Mexico Homebrewers Competition, so I made a tangerine porter. Decided to make a tangerine porter. My style of brewing, I'm very experimental. I always want to add something to it, some kind of characteristic to it, or some kind of flavor to it. So I had an idea of making kind of like a Blue Moon flavor with a porter. One of the ingredients is star anise, so it's, you know, very licorice type of spice. And at first I thought I used too much. It was very strong. But I figured let it sit for a little bit. Hopefully it mellows out. I guess it did, because I did win first place in the fruit beer competition. Nice gold medal first place, or fake gold, I guess. And the fruit beer competition with that beer. So it was the first time I've ever won anything when it comes to home brewing. Wasn't expecting it. I enter competitions not to win, but to get feedback. So my system is, I have a 15-gallon kettle from Spike. I have a 10-gallon plastic water cooler mash tun with a false bottom. And I just have a 5-gallon water cooler, stand-up water cooler for my hot liquor. I have a 3-tier system, so everything is gravity fed. So from top to bottom, hot liquor tank, mash tun, boil kettle at the bottom. So I will have, at the very top tier, I will have my 5-gallon water cooler where I have my water in there. At this point, it would normally be my sparge water, which is at about 170 degrees. One tier lower is my 10-gallon mash tun, where I have my grains in there. When I'm ready to sparge, I use this little contraption that I made with just parts that I had around the house, kind of like a strainer with holes in it. The strainer, it disperses the water very evenly so that the water isn't hitting the mash so hard that it disrupts the grain bed that's settled at the bottom. So as I am sparging water from the hot liquor cooler down to my mash tun, I've also opened up my valve and am letting wort flow into my kettle. Depending on the style of beer I'm making, I either do a 60-minute or 90-minute boil, depending if I'm using a lot of Pilsner malt. I chill it using my counter plate chiller and my pump. And one thing that the Spike kettle allows me to do is not just recirculate my wort during the last 15-minute of the boil, but I do it using a It's another, I have another ball valve just a little bit higher from the ball valve at the bottom that I use for the wort to come out. And on the inside of the kettle, I have a dip tube from Spike. And I use that to create a whirlpool in the kettle. So as the wort is coming out through the bottom valve, it's going through my pump, it's going through my plate chiller. And the great thing about that, especially since I'm using a plate chiller and I don't want a lot of protein or hops, or crap going into the plate chiller and clogging it up, it creates that whirlpool effect so that when I'm done and have everything transferred into my fermenter, right in the middle of my kettle is a little cone-shaped collection of all those proteins and hop debris that have pretty much settled in the middle because of that whirlpool effect. So that's another great thing that I was able to start doing when I got my Spike brew kettle. So that's pretty much it. Thank you for giving me the time to talk about my brewing process, talk about myself, and talk about why I love this hobby. And Spike, again, thank you for giving me the opportunity to do this, and thank you for the products that you make. Again, thank you for just making a great product at an affordable price that the average budget home brewer like myself can still enjoy. So thank you.